Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to the Cheese Room podcast. I always say good evening, but I've got guys in Australia and America with me, so I can be a bit more inclusive. About time, isn't it, John? Welcome to Cheese Room podcast. This evening, we will be looking at the transfer window, which is finally closed. We'll be looking at the very strange win over Brentford on Wednesday night and looking forward to tomorrow's game at Goodison Park. Might be our last ever game at Goodison Park, potentially, if Everton go down, which is in about 15 hours, weirdly. And talking about your comments and stuff as well. So welcome. Please do click the like button. If you don't subscribe to us, subscribe, hit that little bell so you know when we're going to be on. And I'll introduce you to my fabulous guests, starting in the top right, all the way from down under Melbourne. Cameron, how are you?
Good, mate. Yeah, it's been good. Back to school for the kids and means busier at work, but the weather's hotted up just post the tennis. And I'm hearing that Ange might be bringing the team into late May down into Melbourne, so getting a little bit excited at that.
Yeah, is there any more news about it? You told us that last week, but I've not heard anything else.
Yeah, so there's strong rumours of it happening. I think the club just needs to confirm it. Obviously, Aussie rules teams use it on the weekends, but it looks like it's going to be a Wednesday night game, so shouldn't really have too much interference to it. So, I'm hoping. I'd love to see Ange bring the team down to watch them locally.
Yeah, I can't comment, MS. Caller had to bail quite late, so I was a late super sub in today to replace him.
Indeed, the super sub.
I hope I can keep the standard up. And yes, Kerry, we will get to this young gentleman in a minute because we have all researched him about that much. Cameron's just woken up, never heard of him.
Yeah.
Next, joining me from about 7 miles that way, west for me, is James, my son. How are you, Jay?
Good. I've been looking after 2 psychopaths for the past 24 hours. Cats. I have to cat sit all weekend, so that's super fun. Doing all right, but a bit janky doing it off my phone, so forgive the less than stellar appearances, but actually it doesn't look too bad. Nice to be on.
Your mother did tell me that you were having to cat sit, and I told her, how dare she have a social life? It's disgraceful.
I know. It's fine. It's fine. She bought me beer, so we're all good.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Talking of which, you still haven't got your 21st birthday present for me, which is sat at your grandparents' house.
I only just got one from my aunt who's in Australia yesterday, and it happened to be a box of beer. So, there you
nice. Go. Very good. And talking about a man who loves his beer, Jack, all the way from New York. How are you, mate?
Doing pretty good. And I think it does count as the evening around 4 o'clock. You know, that's early evening. Maybe as some would say late afternoon. I guess it falls in that gray period. But sadly, I'm going to say, not going to be a good boy. Wait a few more hours till I can have a beer. So no beer present. Just not even, it's too late for coffee. Just straight water it is.
Thanks, Mr. Diver. It's getting cut tomorrow, and the beard's going to come off as well. I've got a race on Sunday, so I want to be. It's a bit bushy. It's not quite James's level, but I don't need to be a hit 21-year-old because I'm definitely not 21. Good evening, Stephen. I have lost my adapter that my mic and mouse will go into, so I've just got the mic plugged in, so I'm having to use the old school keypad, which is really annoying. John is the caller training master. Oh my goodness, MS, you're gonna catch me out with all these comments. And MS loves his cats. We've got a couple of cats here, but they might be getting upset because my wife is desperate to get a dog, which might be happening in the next week or so. So that could be fun trying to integrate a dog into a house with 2 cats. Anyway, Kevin, we said this. When did Sonny score a couple of free kicks for South Korea? A couple of years ago. We said that when Kane was still taking them. So it'll probably be Porro and Maddison, but hopefully Sonny will get a chance. Obviously, the Aussies cocked it up, Cam.
Yeah, so I haven't seen it happen overnight. So, yes, I was sleeping, but I've woken up to some terrible news this morning. I was hoping the Aussies would turn South Korea over so we could hand Sonny back to Spurs straight away. But it looks like he pulled off some histrionics in the 100th minute or something. Quite annoying because I wouldn't have minded making the semis, but hey, it's probably revenge for 2015 when Ange Socceroos beat the South Koreans in Sydney, for which I was there.
Well, it was before that because he actually won the penalty by apparently going past about 4 players. I don't know if Jack, you saw that. I've only heard it. I haven't seen it.
No, I saw the Twitter post though for it that now probably provided the context that I needed at the time. I saw this amazing photo of Sonny surrounded by 6 or 7 Australians and just sort of gliding past them, sort of in this still frame moment, and it had no context to it. Now that makes a lot of sense.
Oh, okay. Well, there we go. So, I think most of us were hoping that Sonny would lose, not for the same reason as Cam. We just want him back. So, we'll get to that anyway. Shall we start with the news that came out in the last sort of 24 hours? That Lucas, and I apologise if I butcher any of these pronunciations, Bergval, I'm going to go with that, to Tottenham. Here we go. Barcelona were obviously in for him, and the players' camp told him he changed his mind. He wanted to join Tottenham. Tottenham are ready to pay more than 10 million euros to, I'm going to go with Djurgården. Again, someone tell me phonetically how to do it in the comments with add-ons. If only HG was here, he'd be able to do this. Agreement done. Medical take place on Friday. I mean, Kerry said it's done. I haven't seen official comment, but by all accounts, he has turned 18 today. He was born in 2006. James, you're 21. How does that make you feel?
Old and feeling as if I perhaps should have done a little bit more with my life so far, but hey,
blame the parents. That's the best way. Jack, you're our European football expert. Apart from the name, do you know anything about him?
Sadly, not even watching the Swedish league. Watching it so little that I've even forgotten how to pronounce, the Swedish name for the Swedish league. I know it starts with an A. But no, not a Lucas Bergvall enthusiast yet. Probably will be at some stage when I have to do the research on the kid. And I wasn't there, like so many maybe claim to be at, the conception of his birth, and, haven't followed him ever since then, like some maybe. So gonna have to catch up, do my research, and maybe on a future Cheese Room pod, I'll be able to provide much better research.
Well, I can tell you he's played 25
He looks very
games.
good on the ball. He looks very good on the ball in the highlights.
And he's a good
he looks
looking
to
lad,
be a central midfielder by the looks of things. He looks to be a central midfielder.
Yeah, I gather he's played 25 games and scored 2 goals and got 2 yellow cards for Djurgården in the Swedish league, which again I'm not going to try and pronounce. I'm very I'm not even going to go there. There is another Bergval, Teo Bergval, who's a year older, so may well be his brother, and because he does look very similar. I'm sure someone can let us know. Nick Brown is telling us no, he had a trial at Man United and is a fan. Well, why would you go to United right now? They may be one of maybe the biggest club in the world, but they're an absolute
dumpster fire.
I'm not going to swear. Anyway, so we got 3 players in. Obviously, he's coming in the summer. Now, Big Ange obviously has said a few things. Well, I'll start. Jack's written a few words to me. So first of all, we did our business early for the first time ever, really, apart from the time we signed Michael Brown in just before New Year's Day, which was quite underwhelming. In the previous 12 years, follow me on this. 7 of the 11 January window signings for the first team had been on deadline day or later in the case of Ryan Nelson. Ange Postecoglou was clear in private and in public that he wanted Spurs to do their business early, and he got his wish, suggesting a synergy between the head coach and the hierarchy that has been all too rare at the club in previous few years. Postecoglou also wanted another forward to slot into the team straight away. Technical director Johan Langer had worked hard with his team since his arrival in November to bring someone in who would fit the bill. They landed Timo Werner and signed him on loan from Leipzig with impressive efficiency. On the 2nd of November, hold on, my WhatsApp's gone wrong. On the 2nd of November, Postecoglou said, let me scroll up, if you can get your business done early in January, it was more than helpful. Sometimes you can miss the opportunity by waiting the whole month. That's sometimes out of your control. So having him, Langer, is good. Obviously, that's when he signed. Spurs spending so much on Dragushin made them comfortably the Premier League's biggest spenders in the window, even if it doesn't include roughly 8.5 million add-ons they will part way for with Bergvall in the coming days. Spurs are trying to balance 2 objectives with their recruitment as they continue to build a squad into one that Postecoglou can play Postecoglou's style of football over the next few years, while also plugging gaps for the short term to secure Champions League football. Bergvall ticks the first box, Dragushin ticks both, and Werner may well end up ticking both. but is obviously here for the short term. Jack, what's your view on the window?
I feel like Spurs have just kind of sort of as a asterisk to the Spurs doing business early. I do feel like of the last maybe 2 to 3 sort of windows in general, I feel like we have been doing business a tad earlier. Not nearly as panicked. We do seem to get certain signings that are probably seen as necessary signings quite quickly through the door. It's just that we then sort of expect a bit extra business to be done, and then that doesn't happen. Like I feel like that's been more the trend recently, where we do our business, then we're sort of as fans thinking, all right, like we're on the hunt here, and then we just don't do any business afterwards after that, and then we're then sort of left with this sort of void somewhere that maybe should have been filled in the first place. When it comes to it, though, I felt like a lot of it was sort of realistic that we had done. We needed to sign a center back. We needed probably a forward as well. A lot of people had been talking about that. And I do remember correctly, a few people were talking about sort of a forward that could play across the line, like not just sort of as a striker, but could play as a left winger sort of thing as well. And I guess in a way we got that with Timo Werner, whether you like him or not, like he does sort of fit that mold to a degree. And then Dragusin sort of makes sense because we wanted a center back that was sort of for the here and now, but also young and promising. Wasn't like somebody that we already know plenty about that we might not think is good enough, like a Harry Maguire or something like that, as a bad example. So for the most part, I give it like a 6 or a 7 out of 10. Like I felt like, we sort of got what we needed to. Maybe we could have gotten an extra midfielder, but that felt dependent on Oliver Skipp or a Højbjerg or a Lo Celso kind of being moved on, and that didn't happen. So it felt like we were kind of stuck in that area too. So 6 or 7 out of 10. Maybe, if you talk me further into it, I could go higher.
Okay. Cam, firstly, how do you rate it? And I've got a second question for you after that.
I'll go with 7 out of 10 as well. I think we did things for requirement in this window. We needed another centre back. We got the centre back. We needed another winger to cover Sonny's absence. We did that. And I think the Bergville one I don't know too much about. That's happened overnight. So I need to do my research on him in his position where he will play in the future. But I'll be the same. I'd give it a 7 out of 10. There was nothing spectacular. I wouldn't have minded another 8. I think we do need more depth in the midfield, and the midfield's becoming just a problem at the moment. Over the past couple of games, we've not really had full control of it. But I would go to requirement. We ticked the boxes we needed to tick. Nothing too spectacular though.
So Ange was asked about the window in his press conference, and he said about the importance of getting them in early and the fact that both Dragusin and Werner particularly have had input in the team and had an effect. He did say that there was one move that the club decided that they couldn't make, and he emphasised it was something the club really thought about doing, but they did decide to let Lewis Hamilton go to Ferrari. And
you had better timing than he did.
Well, to be fair, the journalists were just eating it up, and then he got him a treat. I have to say, fair play. So if you get a chance after you've watched the Cheese Room, go and watch the Postecoglou press conference because it's good banter. But Cameron, my real question to you, really important, because he's having a little midsummer break. How would Mr. David Harris, the Anglo-Aussie, rate this window, do you think?
Cynically, 5 out of 10. I think being the anti-Enoch, you'd be wanting more and more, and I think there's a cap on the club. I think he'd be a bit more cynical about it. No, I think he's a pragmatist. I think he would acknowledge that we've covered some bases, but not all bases yet. But I think what's going to happen, and get the popcorn out, I think the squad's really going to change at season's end when things will blow up.
Okay, James, what's your view on the window?
I mean, we could bring in Kevin De Bruyne and prime lean on Messi, and Dave would still find something to complain about transfer-wise. But it's not just about who we got in; it's also about who we got out. And when you look at it, we got out, we got rid of Dyer, we got rid of Hugo as well, who should have been gone 6 months ago. So we got some of the deadwood we really needed out. Villiers went on loan, which I think is positive as well. He's gone to Sevilla, so he gets to play with Lamella. So he's just going to come back and probably be worse than Romero and Lamella put together, hopefully, in terms of his, housery. We've signed 2 players that improve the team and are relatively low risk. I like Werner quite a lot. A lot of people aren't as fond of him as I am, but it's basically a no-risk deal. He's already had several goal contributions. He's barely played any football before he came to us. The goals will come. And Dragusin looks like a very good cover. So we've strengthened in 2 areas we really needed to. So I'd probably rate the window, say a 7.5, maybe an 8. The only thing is I would have liked another midfielder, but the only player we were linked with who I really liked was Gallagher. And that was a pricey deal, which wasn't going to happen unless we sold somebody like Højbjerg or Lo Celso. And realistically, those sorts of deals are kind of hard to do in January. So do you know what? For a January transfer window, we've done very well, I think, and we got our business done nice and early. We didn't mess about. No offering 5 million and Josh Onomar, and maybe a Skywalk experience. So we've actually done our business very well. One more would have been nice, but can't really complain about it.
So Mark's asked, can we coax Davo into the comments? I was going to say no, he's too busy poking Matt Hayes on Twitter, but no. Here he is.
No, he's in. Yes, Davo's in.
There's Davo. Hello, mate. How are you? James MS is saying you're on the ball. Good lad. So we're not going to discuss the summer now. I think for January we've done well. When you look at all the other clubs, what they've done, they've all struggled because of FFP. It does look like Daniel Levy's long game does appear to be actually working at long last. We seem to get in there eventually, and we'll just see how things go. So, but the key is obviously this youthful squad. Pochettino had a very useful squad. You look at this list of names here, and Mikey Moore scored a hat trick today for the under-18s and looks a real prospect. One of the Cheese Room guys in the background, Leon, he's never been on this show, he was one of the early podders, said he knows a guy at Palace who's involved with recruitment of the youth at the academy, and they say Mikey Moore, if he keeps his head straight and can not be injured, will be an absolute top player. He's really highly rated around the game, which is fantastic. Vuskovic is joining in 12 months, Jack, or 18.
I think it still would be a while. Didn't they say like 2025?
2025, I know that.
Yeah. So
he's gone on loan to the Polish second division, I believe, or the Polish first division. He's gone on loan to Poland, so hopefully he'll get some game times. Dorrington's got an injury today by all accounts. Ashley Phillips is getting really rave reviews from the Plymouth fans. Yeah, they're loving him. Bergvall we just talked about. Scarlett, jury's out for me on Scarlett at the moment. It's hard to tell. Cam, you obviously haven't seen much of him. What do you think?
I haven't seen. I mean, he's obviously come on for the odd couple of minutes in the odd games, but I haven't seen too much of Dane Scarlett. But I have. I've heard that obviously he was a bit of a starlet a couple of years ago, but I don't know if he's dropped in form over the last 12 months or he's been injured. I just haven't heard too much about him over the last 6 to 12 months to know if he's on trajectory to make the first team in the next year or two. I don't know.
Jack, Scarlett, you having him or not?
It feels early to completely write him off, but it feels like in the past, we probably haven't given him the best of loan spells or the best of loan destinations because he just hasn't really been played sort of from the get-go for a lot of these clubs that he's gone to for whatever reason. Usually it's probably because the manager gets sacked or something like that, and then someone else comes in that really doesn't want anything to do with, the younger players or whatever, situation that arises. It seems like the plan that was laid out for these younger guys to get game time just gets quickly abandoned. And that seems to happen to Dane Scarlett sort of a lot. And I'd say he definitely needs another loan spell of some sort, but it's just about finding him the club that is willing to play him most games, like what we're getting with Ashley Phillips, like what we're getting with Alfie Devine, both with his Port Vale loan spell as well as probably this Plymouth one too. I hope Alejo Valise gets lots of minutes. It's just really about them getting minutes. And it seems like Dane Scarlett, for whatever reason, whatever club he goes to, they just never play him. And that seems to be more of a failure of Spurs's, or maybe he's just getting unlucky with maybe something happening that then leads to the plan just getting like thrown out the door.
Yeah. And what we really need here is someone that, drinks in pubs in the city where Scarlett was on loan last season. James, you're a student at Portsmouth University. Talk to us about what Pompey fans think of Scarlett.
Well, actually, I'll tell you a good story because my mate Matt came to a party on Tuesday with me, and he's a season ticket holder. Issue was, during the season Scarlett was at Pompey, the manager got sacked and Massinio came in. Massinio really didn't rate him. So he didn't play after Massinio came in, who, by the way, has done a fantastic job at Portsmouth so far. The other issue was he was playing out wide. He was playing in central midfield. He was kind of just being shoved wherever when he was playing. There wasn't much care or consideration. The other issue was he was playing late on in games. He was playing early, getting subbed early. I think a lot of Pompey fans think he had, well, I know Matt said he thinks he definitely had quite a lot of technical ability, just not quite wasn't tough enough for the level almost. I think is the big thing because it's a very physical league. And up until Massinio came in, that Pompey team was pretty terrible, playing old school pre-Route 1 football, which was never really going to work for someone like Scarlett. It's a shame Massinio didn't rate him because he actually would have probably worked quite well under a manager like him who's much more progressive. But hey-ho, didn't rate him for whatever reason. So bit of a shame. I think he's a bit of a non-thought in a lot of Pompey's fans' heads. To be fair.
I mean, sometimes it's about finding the right club for a loan for a player. And it obviously didn't work for him at Ipswich, sadly. And obviously he can't be loaned out again because he played for us against Fulham in the EFL Cup. So the only chance he's going to get this season is if he plays for us. So we've got to hope that we can get 3 or 4 goals up in some games. He can get some game time, maybe get a goal. Scoring a goal could make such a big difference. So Kerry's making a good point. Are we ditching Parrott? He's 21. He has scored for Excelsior again. I think his 7th goal. He's now got as many goals, if not more, than Bergwijn, one of the guys in the Irish Hotspur WhatsApp chats just told me. So I don't know. Again,
so can I ask a question there? Does that mean if Scarlett can't be loaned out this season, can he be loaned out next season?
You can play for 2 teams a season, but because he played for Spurs and then he played for Ipswich, he couldn't play for another team. If he hadn't played in that cup game, he could have been loaned out again.
The rules are sneaky. I get it.
Yeah, basically. And as if by magic, I'm going to go the old school way of putting a picture up. There's our man in the Spurs shirt. There we go, boys. Man or boy. I think Shan described him as Mickey van der Ven and Eric Dyer's love child.
It's very complimentary of Eric Dyer.
And HG says he thinks he can get his wife to watch more football now that this young lad's signed. So
he's not bad looking. I'll give him that.
He's not a bad looking lad.
Well, we're lucky he just turned 18 with these comments.
Now, Barcelona fans have taken a bit of offence to the fact that, obviously Dragushin turned down Bayern, has come to Spurs. We're getting a bit of a reputation now. This Barcelona fan particularly took offence to it. This is why we need the Super League. Tin pot clubs like Tottenham Hotspur are competing with mammoth clubs like Barcelona, all because of oil money. Now, could somebody tell me where the oil money is? Because I'm pretty sure Andy from Man City denied it was Man City. So it's not them. It's definitely not us.
Especially coming from Barcelona, where if any of the money they're spending anymore, I'm not even sure if it's theirs. It's the Spanish loaners and the banks and whatever entities are keeping them alive. Barcelona, if they weren't the brand that they are, would definitely be a dead club. They're just being held up by various consortiums that have given them very favorable loans. That probably, if they don't pay them back, though, at some stage will turn to not so favorable loans, and they probably will fall further into financial meltdown. But yeah, very funny because I'm not even sure what money is even theirs anymore.
Correct.
Yeah, it's all TV money, isn't it? Sorry, Dan. I am wondering if it's going to catch on. It's not the greatest nickname, but yeah. Go on, Jay. We can say something.
I'm sorry, has there been a takeover of the club or something and we're owned by a Middle Eastern state? Because I didn't know anything about this oil money. Where's it come from? Are we linked with Ronaldo or something now? I don't know what's going on here. I don't know what this guy knows. Maybe he's best mates with Fabrizio, but who knows, mate? Ugh.
Yeah. There you go. Asset-backed loans on future TV revenue.
Yeah.
There you go. Jack is one of our financial gurus, along with Mr. Steve Diver. Oh, and there you go. There is Steve, better than Spuds. What do you think in the comments? Spuds or Spurt? No, let's not go there. Yeah. So, Alistair Gold reporting, with Langer key to Spurs signing Lucas Bergvall. Many inside Tottenham believe the club is in the throes of putting together one of the most exciting groups of young players seen at Hotspur Way in a long time. Now, given that Hotspur Way is only 11 or 12 years old, I think it probably is the best young group of players. If you mean that Tottenham as a whole, even then it could well be the best group we've had maybe since the 60s. I don't know. Obviously, Dave, if you're still in the chat, let us know, because you were there in the 60s, as we know. Can anyone else think of a crop this positive?
Mid-teens of a few years ago was a pretty good crop. A lot of them came from the outside, but that was a good young team. Obviously, teams like Leicester and Chelsea bumped us to the title, but we did like our Ericssons, our Dele Allis, a young Eric Dyer amongst other teams, Kane and others. So that was a good young crop for its time.
I'll tell you what, Dan, can you come up with what ENIC stands for if it's oil barons? Because there must be something. You can come up with English. I don't know. Be creative. Right. And then also we've had the news, which was a bit surprising, that Valise has joined Sevilla on loan for the remainder of the season. He's been given, Jack, the number 10.
Yeah. He's going to be the playmaker for the Sevillans, which is nice. I'm kind of thrown by this signing or this loan, because Sevilla, I must say, though, they're not the club that maybe we usually associate them with being, right. They're kind of towards the bottom of the table there, and they have struggled a lot in majority of the season. I think they've struggled as well to really score goals for the majority of the season. So signing maybe a guy like Valise is sort of just kind of a shot in the dark, sort of what they need, or just kind of they're just becoming desperate at this stage. And perhaps Valise is there to sort of help them out. Majority of their forwards that we usually would think would be better just haven't been. And so Sevilla, I wouldn't say, or maybe they're in a crisis. They kind of probably are. Like, the more I think about it, they kind of are starting to reach kind of a crisis period, because they weren't so great last season. Definitely been terrible this season. And I guess their standards have dropped to a degree that our own man, Alejo Valise, can now wear the number 10, to try to save their season. Looking forward to it. I will definitely be watching Sevilla games when I get the chance now, just to see if he actually gets to play regular minutes, because it'll be fun. I like Sevilla. I think they have a nice stadium. Looks like a lovely place to go. I've never been to Seville, but looks like a nice place to be. Yeah, I like that club.
It sounds like a trip we should do, a joint Irish Hotspur cheese trip to Sevilla. But more importantly, Jack, will you be watching the Swedish league or the La Liga more in the next few weeks?
Definitely. I mean, I probably, if I were to ever pick a obscure league to be watching more, might actually be like the Norwegian league, where a lot of players seem to be sort of coming out. They seem to have a bit of a golden generation, not even including that Antonio Nusa. It just feels like there's just a ton of people that you hear about sort of leaving that league. So if I ever were to stay up and think about an obscure league to watch that's in the snow, probably wouldn't be the Swedish, might be the Norwegian one.
James, he'll of course get tutelage under the S-Housery King, Mr. Eric Lamela at Sevilla.
It's going to be glorious, isn't it? He's going to learn all those tricks, and then he can come back and Romero can teach him some more. I mean, and Richarlison can teach him some. Like, I don't know what it is with us. We always have these Argentinians who, well, you could put it this way. If you were in a fight, you wouldn't mind them backing you, would you? It's magnificent. He needs to learn that sort of thing. I mean, at Sevilla, he's going to get a lot of game time, and if they can't score goals, well, he's going to have a lot of. Hopefully, he'll have some chance to score some goals. I'd rather he go somewhere where he's going to get a fair amount of game time than go to a team that's doing a bit better, but he's going to come off the bench for half an hour. So at least he'll get a lot of game time. Definitely a positive move for him, I think.
Jack, MS is suggesting the Lithuanian league is something to research. There you go. That'd be some very. There must be a YouTube channel in that somewhere.
The lowest I've ever gone is I used to love a player named Stevan Jovetic, and I used to watch him almost anywhere he would go. And at one stage, I remember when I was quite young, about 15 or 16, I was watching Montenegro versus Lithuania, which definitely, you reach a real stage of, football addiction at that point.
It's definitely not what a lot of 16,
Very
17
low place to go.
doing. I'm
Yeah.
sure most 16, 17-year-old boys are doing other things on the internet, but that's a whole different story.
It was a different era.
Anyway,
it was a different era.
Here we go. Thanks, Dan. He's got their English negotiators in crude
Hey,
oil.
there you go.
Well played. So let's move on. We've done the window. Let's move on to our 3-2 win over Brentford on Wednesday night. Cam, what time was this for you on Thursday morning?
This was 6:30 a.m. So I watched the first half and then had to drive and was playing it in my car, but I had to pay attention to the road. So it was quite chaotic driving up to work and hearing 3 goals in 8 minutes occur. And you're like, what's going on here? But it was quite chaotic driving to work, but it was a game that I actually didn't mind. Brentford came with a bit of the needle. Definitely wanted to target Maddison, obviously, but I think it was one of the more unconvincing 3-2 wins that I'd seen us play this season. I was quite impressed with Brentford, with the shithousery, a bit of the needle coming just to rough us up. It wasn't a dominant performance by us, but Ange Ball does cover many sins in our team.
Yeah. So the starting lineup, Jack, came out. Obviously, Skippy was back in. Madders, we suspected might be in. Any other surprises for you there?
Not really. A lot of people probably did put pressure on sort of maybe Ange or whatever, to make some changes to the lineup, because I think Brennan Johnson maybe just needed to be taken out of sort of the attention and the firing line to a degree. Probably served him good to just have a bit of pressure taken off of him and a bit of attention taken off of him. I sort of believe, like, if you're going to say the cliche of like, he just needs a run of games, to get some confidence. Felt like he got a lot of run of games and really just need to be taken out to sort of get some confidence, back again. And so made sense then to move Kulusevski onto the right wing. Made sense to probably put Skipp ahead of Højbjerg in that, just because Skipp, weirdly, even though I'm not his biggest backer, played well against Man United and sort of played, I think, well and just sort of in the past couple of games, and hasn't really done himself, any sort of disservice. So he probably deserved in some sort of sense to get a start, or at least be more in contention than he has been in the past. And I don't think he did anything wrong exactly to be subbed off, but clearly, the changes Ange made did work. And yeah, for the most part, I think that team made a lot of sense. And maybe we might see some more changes for this Everton game. Perhaps there might be changes again because of the quick turnaround. But for the most part, I wasn't that shocked by the team.
Yeah. So, James, we started off quite quickly, as we've seen many a time under Ange, which is obviously a contrast to his predecessors. But as the game wore on, you could already see Brentford were getting a couple of breaks in, and Destiny got tackled on the halfway line. They broke away. First of all, I thought Tony should have done better, to be honest. I don't know what you thought. And then obviously Mopé managed to knock in the rebound.
I think they got a little bit fortunate. To be totally honest, I missed the first half and I watched the second half in the pub on my phone. So my knowledge of the game is a smidgeroo hazy, but I have watched the extended highlights. I think they got a little bit fortunate with their first goal, especially actually both goals. They got very fortunate, I think. Destiny should have done a lot better for both of them, but it's unfortunate, especially when you play a high line. Those sorts of breaks are always a risk. I think we maybe could have done a little bit better there, to be honest. But the first half, we were a little bit off it, I think. Yes, we had some good play, but I don't think the balance of the team was ideal. I mean, I was really hoping Brennan would start, and I was hoping for a midfield of Bentancur, Kulu and Maddison, just to have that ball retention and creativity, which we didn't have. And I thought we definitely lacked that from what I saw of the first half. Just my opinion.
Okay. Cam, have you ever seen Brentford play that dirty?
I like Brentford as a club and as a team. I've never Maupay wanted to actually knock his block off. Like I would have shirt fronted the little prick, but he was definitely annoying the hell out of me when that first goal got in. I would, and did the dart. I thought we're on here for a bit of needle. We're on here for a bit of spark. So you saw Maupay and Maddison go back at it, and I kind of didn't mind it. I don't mind when teams come to Tottenham and actually give it a go. It means we have to mentally stand up as well. And I think we were a bit reactive for a period of time. Let's be honest, mentally, it took a halftime rocket from Ange, proper baking at halftime for them to essentially get into top gear. And what happened within 8 minutes? 1, 2, 3 goals. So I think it actually basically needed a rocket and a couple of changes to essentially just get us into gear because we were too reactive mentally. I don't mind needle from opponents. I'm Australian saying that in the cricket and so forth. I don't mind the mind games. It's just that we need to step up to the plate as well, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think of
Jack.
Sorry.
Oh, go on, Jeff.
I think of all people to, mouth off, Maupay is probably the last person who should be. He's probably the worst striker I've seen in a very long time. I don't understand why he's in the Premier League. When he was at Brighton, I remember seeing every single week their XG, they would destroy teams, even really good teams like Liverpool and City, and they would never score because Maupay can't score. He has one of the worst XG to goal conversion rates in the Premier League. I don't understand why he keeps getting moves to Premier League clubs. He's awful. He's just awful. He scored a lucky goal because it was a tap in, and he lost. So hold that.
Yeah. So Jack, as the game wore on, they were sitting deep and making compact, and we kept going through the middle, and out wide wasn't really working for us. Werner tried a few times going outside, but he clearly cannot cross with his left foot. I put a joking tweet out, maybe of Daniel Levy on the phone saying, "Can we send him back?" But in all seriousness, I was wondering whether we should have switched him to the right and maybe put Kulu on the left. But what was your thought in that first half about just the way we attacked them and their compactness?
Yeah, I think by conceding first, you are playing very much into Brentford's hands, where they are going to then almost double down on sort of the game plan from the get-go, which was to clog up the middle. They pretty much, I think, set up in like a 3-5-2, where they had, Janelt, Norgard, and Jensen, and then Keane Lewis Potter and players like that, kind of dropping into that midfield. And then at stages, you even saw like Ivan Toney and Neil Maupay also sitting behind the ball as well, sort of right in front of those midfielders. So clearly they just didn't want Spurs to try to dominate the ball in midfield in the central areas to try to break them down through there. They would just rather us try to whip balls into the box where they have 3 very tall defenders and Ethan Pinnock. They have Ben Mee out there as well, so it was going to then be a tough ask for Richarlison to then find the space to be able to do it. So I feel like it sort of made sense the way, sorry, I'm going to have a siren pass by, so maybe pass it off to Cameron. Sorry.
Yeah. Can I just say, that wasn't, bring it back to the initial question you gave me, John. It's not the first time teams have played Spurs and acted a bit, how would I say, came with a bit of needle or came with a bit of dirtiness.
Chelsea wound up Romero, so he got sent off.
I think Everton, or was it Sheffield United? There's been a few teams this season come to the lane and essentially bring their shithousery across because they want to try and mentally rattle us to take us off our game and probably our mental continuity, because Ange Ball's so positive and so high pace that if they can put them off their perch, then Tottenham's almost done. So it's not the first time we've put up with this. So I don't think we need to actually really over-complain. We've got to more prepare for it and not get wound up or reactive about it as well.
Yeah, Dan's called it here. Villa were horrendous. Obviously, Mr. Cash is not my favourite person.
Yeah.
Maupay is joining him now on my list of hated people. No doubt Paul Muir might want to punch in the face. I'm sure he's, Dan's got it. Matty Cash specifically,
Yeah,
absolutely.
not the first team.
This is a good point. I don't know many Neils that are French. I have to say, I'm not aware of many.
I think it's been a tactic of a lot of teams this season to sort of hack at Spurs, but my theory behind it is because if they don't, then they have to sort of play at the same pace as us and the same tempo as us, which they're probably not in shape to do, or they just simply don't want to. It could be a combination of the two, probably.
Well,
and so then they just hack us down so that they can stop the ball and be able to gather their breath, as well as set up again in an organized shape so they don't get sort of out of whack and out of, sort of their own organization, and sort of suits them. And so they just get whatever guy's willing to hack us down.
Yeah, because Ange Ball's, you have to admit, Ange Ball's quite high tempo, but quite unsettling for teams as well. With exceptions, probably one or two of them, they don't know how to handle Ange Ball probably to the extent and the speed and the transitions back and down the field. So they've got to come with some other niggling tactics to try and mentally slow things down or unsettle our players. Look, you've seen Maddison had it been gone at, Udogie. There's been various players have targeted in terms of our players this season. Matters the other night, Udogie, you name it. They've been targeting certain players. It's not. I haven't been surprised by it.
Yeah. So, like you've already mentioned, Cam, we came out second half like a completely different team. Ange clearly got into them. Jack, what do you think he changed specifically at half time? What was the difference?
Brought on Højbjerg and brought on Johnson, and that really did change, the way that Spurs played. I think Højbjerg has been really good as sort of more of an impact sub this season. It feels like Ange trusts him to like instill whatever has been kind of missing, like kind of in the team. And again, sorry, I have another siren passing, but it's like with Højbjerg, I feel like his best games have been him like more off the bench than it's actually been him starting. And that's because as whether you rate Højbjerg, don't rate him, he is one of those, like as that one podcast likes to say, he's one of those parched sort of players that will like listen to every word of the manager, study, what needs to be done, kind of off the bench, and then can make the necessary sort of impact and whatever Ange is looking for. And I think what Ange just needed was we need to be speeding things up, because if we're just going to slowly pass it around and through this Brentford midfield and past their defense, it's not going to really work very much. You almost had to speed up the tempo even more, ask Brentford to play even faster, ask Spurs to play even faster. And I think Pierre was doing that. And whereas Bentancur, as beautiful as he is to watch, sometimes we were guilty of a few too many touches or just a simple sideways pass that really could have been made quicker, or maybe there was an open pass to break the lines that was actually on in the first place. And Højbjerg, I think when you give him time on the ball, can do that. I think he can break the team down, and he did exactly that. Also, Brennan Johnson, to be fair to him, I think when the game is stretched and when sort of the fullback is a bit more tired, he of course offers more threat and behind, and he was sort of running at his man in a different way than Kulusevski was or can, and sort of that just suited Spurs. I think it was just the fact that Ange just told them to play even faster in that first sort of get-go from the start. We got lucky with the Udogie goal, and then from there we just overwhelmed them. So it's just about, sometimes that's even Ange's solution, right? Is don't even change the tactics, just use the same tactics, just play even quicker and faster. And I think that's what we did.
Yeah. MS wants to know, are you in jail?
Probably. For the sirens. I thought it was going to be for my Højbjerg praise, but yeah.
I am actually, I mean, I said at half time, I could see Højbjerg coming on, because it really reminded me of the Liverpool game when they had 9, but they had a back 5, and we just kept going through the middle, not going wide. And Højbjerg came on. As soon as he came on, started pinging the ball wide. And I wondered if that might happen. Didn't expect it at half time. It's a bit of a culture shock for us having a manager that does change things quickly, generally. Because I know Conte did it in his first couple of games. He took Dyer off, didn't he? After half an hour. But generally, he would, and Pochettino would never make any changes till about the 70th minute. So it was really refreshing that he did change it. I was surprised by the moves he did specifically, but it worked. And, 3 quick goals, all from the left. Werner, Udogie, Maddison, all playing a part. Great that Richie got another goal, so his runs keep going. He's now on 8 Premier League goals. So my question to all 3 of you, I'll start with you, James. How many goals can Richie end the season with, Premier League goals? He's on 8 right now, and he's got 16 games left.
Well, he didn't score. He may have scored 1 until he didn't start scoring until about 2 months ago. 10 weeks ago, something like that. So all 8 have come in a relatively, probably 10, 11, 12 games. Provided he doesn't get injured, I can see him getting in between 15, 20 goals. I can see him easily getting, what's that? That's a goal every other game. Yeah, 16, 17 goals. I think he can get to that tally pretty comfortably. And if he keeps playing well, or we have a couple games where we just blitz through a team, 6-7-0, 20 goals isn't completely inconceivable, even if I don't think he'll get there. I think 15, 16 goals is pretty likely.
Yeah, Jack?
I'd say if he gets to around the 14, 15 mark, he did kind of what a lot of Spurs fans had set out for him in the beginning of this season. Because I think the big sort of, what was the sort of line that everybody was kind of using, at least a lot of fans were using, was, oh, we don't really need Harry Kane anymore. The goals are going to be spread around, right? And what sort of they meant then was Richarlison picks up around, 14 or 15. Kulusevski gets around 10. Other players contribute with around 10 or whatever the numbers sort of get chalked down and divided up by. So if Richie gets to the 14 or 15, he's pretty much done his job, I think, from what Spurs fans had set out for him in the beginning of the season. So I'm going to say he reaches that number, and I don't think he should be under really any pressure or any sort of criticism if he does reach that number, because he sort of set out and hit the target that people set for him, despite a lot of setbacks and a lot of sort of personal troubles for his own self. So yeah, a big upturn of a season for Richie.
Cam?
Yeah, I was going to say 14 to 15 as well. It will be interesting as the team starts to get a lot of the first teamers back and we get continuity of those first teamers gelling once again, because let's be honest, for a large chunk of this season, we've either been hampered by tournaments happening overseas or a large chunk of injuries. So I think good things will happen once the run-in comes into the end of the season. I think 14 to 15 should be the minimum. Maybe, I would say the target, but I could feasibly see him scoring a couple more because I think he'll have the service that he deserves because he probably won't necessarily be targeted.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you, I've just had a quick count. Since his injury, he's had 9 starts and scored 7 goals. So if he can keep that up, obviously 20 is achievable. Obviously, and we know players have dips in form, and Sonny's going to come back in the team, and we don't know where Sonny's going to play. Could we see Sonny on the right on some games? Could we see Sonny on the left, or back in the middle, and Richie being rested? There's all sorts of scenarios, but I think you're right, Jack. We've scored a lot of goals this season. I think 47 in the league. We're right up there as high scorers. HG sent us something the other day, and they are spread. Although Sonny and
I think
Richie
and Sonny are actually carrying us. That's what I sort of was alluding to. Was Richie at the moment can't do much better because he's sort of carrying the team with the goals that he's been scoring. If you look at our second and third highest goal scorers, I think it's, other than Kulusevski, it's Romero and James Maddison. One of them's been out for the majority of the season, and then Romero is a central defender. So it's actually not really been picked up by other players in this team, for whatever reason. So we are dependent on Richie getting the goals, and he has been. So, but let's hope that others can sort of step up in case he does go through a little patch where he isn't scoring.
I get what you're saying, but we've scored 47 goals, and they've only scored 20 of them. So the rest of the team have contributed.
Chipped
in, with ones and twos, but not nearly as much as I think we would.
No, I agree that other players do need to be scoring. Obviously, Johnson scored his second goal. We need to see more from him. We will need to see, when Solomon comes back or even Werner, we need those wide guys in the system need to be scoring probably 15 a season each, realistically. James, you about to say something?
Yeah, I think Werner will definitely score a few goals. I think what we have to remember with him is I think he's played something like 23 minutes of football in the 3 months before he arrived at Spurs. He hasn't played a lot of football. He will start to score. Johnson scored his second goal. Hopefully that's a big confidence boost for him because he's obviously struggled in that department. I've seen what kind of player he can be for Wales. He will score goals for us. Udogie does seemingly score a fair bit. I think the guy who needs to step up in the goal scoring area in particular is probably Kulusevski. In his first season with us, and last year he seemed to score a lot more than he does now. And I'm not saying he hasn't played well for us this season. He definitely has, but I think he can do a bit more for us in the goals department, and hopefully he does step up a little bit.
Yeah. So obviously Brennan Johnson with his second goal, he's come under a lot of criticism, especially from this very pod, the Cheese Room. Many of the Cheese Room guys are not convinced by him, which I fully understand because he's really struggled. I thought he did it right when he came on, and they should have definitely had a player sent off for that foul on him. How the ref didn't even give that as a foul was just astonishing. But this is something that Jack's thrown at me. So on the left, you've got Sonny stats from his first season, 15-16, and on the right, you've got Johnson stats from this season. So in 28 games, Sonny got 4 Premier League goals and 1 assist, and Johnson's 19 games, 2 Premier League goals, 4 assists. So when you look at that, is there a bit of justification of giving him some time, Cameron?
100%. I can see, and I've listened to a fair bit of the Cheese Room criticism, but I am still, he's 21, 22. I get it. He's probably defensively not great. His work rate, amongst other things, he's a touch sensitive. He does need an off-season with Ange to probably iron out some of the deficiencies. We've got to remember he hasn't had much of a break since he's come over. He's literally come over, I think, earlier this season from Forest, and he's had to go from the get-go. He hasn't had a break to actually think and probably listen to some of the info because he's been playing week upon week upon week upon week. I think he doesn't need a spell. And look, he was coming off the bench the other night, but he hasn't been here for that long, and he hasn't really had much of a break by virtue of our injury list. So give the guy time.
Yeah. Jack?
I feel like it's so extreme to just give up on a player this quickly into a time period. But then I think you rightfully can be frustrated. Like, I think there can be a balance struck there. Like, I think that is possible where you can sort of still give a player time, still give him patience, but then can still offer critique and criticism at the same time from what you've been seeing. I think there is a balance to be struck here with Brennan Johnson, because while maybe, if you were to compare him to Sonny's first season, I'd also say that Lo Celso, who's played only like 300 minutes or something, has 2 goals and 2 assists, which is almost as many as what Brennan Johnson has gotten this whole season. So there's that as well. We can all throw stats about. And when you do that, that would then sort of make his numbers look pretty unimpressive for what has been a lot of minutes, a lot of starts, and a lot of chances to get more goals and assists than what he's had. I think my sort of problem, and I think you can just sort of call a spade, where yes, he's not played terribly, but he's by no means played exceptionally either. So there is some sort of gray area in there that I think he finds himself in. And where I sort of get frustrated with him in certain games, it's just that there have been moments when he has a pretty easy cross or a pretty easy ball that he can square to any sort of attacker in the box, and he finds a way to sort of miss all of them, sort of for the same thing that maybe when Emerson, used to be a right wing back, people used to criticize Emerson for, where he kind of never seemed to be able to find, that guy in the box when it was sort of wide open. And I think Brennan Johnson is a bit guilty of sort of hitting it into the box and hope that it gets there, but not really knowing who he's actually picking out or what he's really aiming for. And then he's had maybe some chances that he could have put in away, or maybe could have probably timed his run, or maybe put himself in the better position to get himself in a good position to score. It's just that I feel like Brennan Johnson hasn't played terribly, but I do feel like there's also been a tad bit overprotection of him at the same time. I think we're allowed to say that he's not played as well as he could be and has had disappointing games and some disappointing moments this season. I think, that's all part of football debate and football sort of discussions, is to not be so polar, but to be able to find some sort of kind of, like middle ground of, where he is. And I think he's in a middle ground sort of season where some really good moments, but some moments where, I've been frustrated.
James, I can tell you one thing, because this question by Daniel was a good point. How many starts, though? Sonny was sub most of the time. Although he's played 9 appearances fewer, Johnson already played more minutes than Sonny did in that season. I know because I just looked it up.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think a lot of the criticism of Brennan this season has been he cost 50 million. The thing you have to remember is the price tag should not always be equal to the expectation we place upon a player. I know that sounds bizarre, but obviously he came from Forest, he had a long-term contract, he was a very important player for them. Every Premier League team is rich, bar maybe Chelsea with FFP and Everton, but they can demand a very large transfer fee. He was worth 50 million to them. So just ignore the transfer fee. Get that out of your mind for a moment. What we have is a young player who works exceptionally hard and has a lot of potential. I have seen how good of a player he can be in some Forest games and for Wales, which obviously is a different level, but there's that player there. I think the big concern I have at Spurs is he does seem a bit, it reminds me of Sessegnon a little bit in certain instances. He looks a little bit apprehensive to do what he thinks he wants to do. He almost looks scared to do it. And I think that's just confidence. You know, he's moved to a much bigger club. He didn't have a full preseason with Ange. You know, he's not had a lot of time to sit and learn. He's still very young. He will come good in time, and he does make a lot of good runs. He does get himself in good positions. It's just that little mental block. I mean, Richie took what? It took him, basically 16, 17 months and a surgery before he started playing well. Not every player hits the ground running like a Kulusevski or a Bentancur. He's still very, very young. He'll be fine. He is a good player. And I don't think whinging about him on Twitter is particularly going to help him because he is trying. He'll be fine. Ange likes him. He's going to be fine. He'll come good. He'll score goals. Just give him time.
Ange wanted him when he was at Celtic. So he's been a long time admirer of Johnson. So I think he does see the potential in him. And Ange has a proven track record of developing players into the best they can be throughout his career, from back here, Melbourne Victory, Brisbane Roar, Yokohama, Celtic. I believe in Ange's system and actually developing the crop of players he does have.
So just bring this up. This was the stats from the game. The XG was 3.26 against 1.93. So 3-2 seems a fair result based on your XG. We had much more possession, 19 goal attempts, only 5 on target, 14 off target. They had 4 off target. Obviously, we seem to be cruising at 3-1, and you could see us scoring a 4th or even a 5th. And then Destiny decides to. I thought he looked. This is what I don't get. I swear, when I was watching it, he looked like he was going to pass it back. Looked up. I went, "Oh, it's all clear. I'll kick it back." And out of nowhere, it must have been like some sort of rabbit hole. Ivan Toney. He was obviously on his Paddy Power app. Just appeared. Oh, I love that. Let's tuck it in the corner. Now, is there an argument? I don't know if this was suggested that the Brentford kit almost disappeared into the background of this lovely stadium behind me. Jack, could he just not seen him because of the crowd? Because they're wearing a sort of dark kit with a little bit of blue in it, and
I can't really explain it. I think it was also funny for us, anybody watching it on the TV, because he was so far out of picture, like Ivan Toney, that we were probably convinced that there was no one back there, and then Ivan Toney just somehow pops up out of nowhere. I can't much explain it. Maybe Udogie just went for the classic blind, backwards pass, and you see so many great players get punished for it actually more often than you think.
If you see the replay, Udogie, if you see the replay of it, you actually see he didn't see. He just clearly, as you mentioned before, he must have been blinded, but he didn't actually see that Toney was actually there. So he's initially straight away, it wasn't a brain fart. He just did not see him there. Yeah.
I mean, and Phil's saying he'd been holding his calf in our box. I was wondering whether it was, as Next Level's suggesting here, very, very clever play that he knows that we do pass it back quite a lot. Did he just think, I'll just stay here for a minute and see what happens? It's something Teddy Sheringham used to do to if he was offside, rather than rush back, he would stay as far up the pitch as possible to make sure that the free kick the keeper would take would be nearer their box. And I remember Spurs fans, we were like, why are you not moving? And then suddenly it dawned on us it was a tactic he was doing. It meant Toney playing hide and seek. So, Brentford, had a lot of pressure, but apart from that one volley from the corner when the keeper came up, I don't really remember Vicario having to make any real saves. I think we weathered the storm quite comfortably in the end. Anyone else? Am I wrong in that assertion? No?
I felt like in the first half, there were periods where we gave the ball away very sloppily, and Brentford had some pretty dangerous breaks. I mean, of course, the Rorslev goal, however you pronounce his name, was only narrowly offsides. Is that right? Or maybe it was still enough offsides, but it was still a dangerous move that we got a lucky break from. And then there was some other periods where I think we gave the ball away in sort of some bad areas, and they had some pretty dangerous looks and some pretty dangerous chances. I don't think it's the most that we've gotten away with. Like, we've definitely gotten away with more, and I think other games when it comes to sort of the on the front foot sort of style of play that we do have. But in sort of the context of the Everton game, just quickly, like, I do see it being pretty similar. Like, I think Everton will also kind of look to just see if Spurs turn it over in these sort of similar areas, and they will look to also hit us on the counter and have runners available to stretch that back line. Because it's funny with Brentford and teams like Everton, they're going to set up that sort of way against most teams. So then when they actually play Spurs, they actually might be licking their lips a little bit, because it's far more space than that's left in behind than what they usually get, despite usually playing that way in the first place. So I feel like teams that set up pragmatically, set up in this conventional type way, will sort of kind of fancy themselves like against Spurs, no matter how well we're playing, just because they almost always play that way. But finally, a team is giving them the space in behind to take advantage of that most teams wouldn't. So, yeah, it's not as cagey when when we come around to play them.
I will. Oh, sorry.
Go on, go for it.
I will say we probably play the highest line and the highest tempo of any team in the Premier League, bar, I think, probably early Klopp Liverpool. I think there's a lot of similarities there, although I do think Ange is a much better manager than Klopp. One, because he doesn't whinge constantly to the media about hand sanitizer for one, but there is that similarity. And I remember, Liverpool lost, was it 7-2 to Villa a few years ago? Those results can happen, and at some point we are probably going to get a result like that just because of the way we play. But the cons of that are far outweighed by the pros of a not watching suicide football. Basically, is how I describe Jose Mourinho and Antonio Conte, and also the fact we win a lot of games. But games like that will happen, and teams like Everton, they've got a great manager in Sean Dyche. He's going to be thinking they're going to play a really high line. If we have a couple of pacey wingers, we're going to be able to cause them some issues on the break. But, so there is obviously that risk for us. And I can see us possibly conceding against Everton, to be fair. But who knows? Sorry for interjecting.
That was the same weekend we beat United 6-1 at Old Trafford, James. So
I remember that.
I've forgotten the link of those two. I've just taken his comment down. Next Level wants us to discuss Werner and his world-class performance with his world-class assists. So obviously, I had my little joke at halftime, which I'm happy to be wrong with a joke, a little bit of banter if someone turns it round. Happy days. What do we think of Werner and Cam? And can we see him being here next season? Or do we think this is just a short term and we'll bring someone else in?
I still want to see what we can get out of him. I mean, I'm happy with the assists. It's the expectation of what we have on Werner. If the club wants goals, he's not going to come. He's got no end product. The end product he's had thus far from going towards goal has been horrendous. There was that one early on the other night where he kind of shanked it, but it was rolling into goal, but the keeper got it. But on assists alone, yes, he's been great. I can't deny that. And his placement, there has been criticism from other podcasts, but also noticing as well where he has been in placement to receive the ball and he hasn't received it. So his work rate off ball has been good. Depends what you want him there for, because he's not going to score goals from what we see of the current sample size. But it's a wait and see for me. I think we may keep him. I'm still wanting to see, because I don't know what they're wanting him for, because he's providing assists. I love that. But if they want goals out of him, I don't know.
Jack, Dan suggesting Chelsea fans must be crying into their cornflakes.
I don't know. Like, I think Chelsea fans have probably forgotten about all the strikers, or have so many strikers that never score goals for them that he almost isn't. It's like not a small club, actually. What Werner found himself in that Chelsea crew. I believe, right, the last sort of man to score whatever amount of goals that's respectable in a number 9 shirt was Diego Costa, if that's right, or basically the last sort of decent striker for them was Diego Costa, which is definitely a while ago. So don't feel that bad for Werner, knowing that there are a lot of other people that have failed kind of with him or after him. I feel like he's done quite well so far. Like, I agree with kind of the theories that he just wasn't played in enough in that one game against the likes of Man United. And I feel like too that, or even Man City, it felt like that he wasn't even played in, all that much. Probably that's a better example. I think too is that he's just offering maybe a similar, I think it's a nowhere near as close, but a similar sort of threat in behind and a similar sort of kind of just on the front foot type of pace that Sonny does bring on that left wing. Because when Sonny starts to try to run in between the lines, like, you have to respect it and you have to honor it. And I think Werner is similar, where he does usually beat you for that first 15, 20 yards. And he seems as well to be pretty enthusiastic in the press. Nowhere near as, I think, as good as Richarlison is, but he's still, I think, enthusiastic enough. And yeah, I just think he's had a fine start. He's created as well, like, good chances for other players. I wish maybe he had more chances that he created for himself to shoot on goal, but he has had some nice moments of just setting up chances for others. Not even just the assists, just kind of whenever we've asked somebody to just sort of take on his man and create something, he's sort of been that person kind of consistently in the time that he's been playing. I would say he's been all right. Not that disappointed so far.
Okay. James, next level, obviously, because Lo Celso's injured. He's got nothing to moan about, so he's giving you something on a spin. Tell me a player fast and effective and experienced. I think experience is probably the key word here. Who's available for £15 million. The one thing people are forgetting, he's on very big wages. He's on 165k a week, I think it is. So, would you be happy to sign him?
Well, we currently have a French McDonald's enthusiast at the club on 200 grand a week, so 165 grand seems pretty reasonable in comparison, actually. Yeah, I think if you see him as a winger and not a striker, his goal output doesn't seem that bad. I think the thing you have to remember is the seasons where he had a really good goal return was when Leipzig were playing, yes, a pressing system, but also a very counter-attacking system. He's much, much better when he has a lot of space to run into. Chelsea weren't that team when he joined them. They were very possession-based, and modern Leipzig are a lot more possession-based. So, we're obviously not a counter-attacking team, but Ange does like his wingers very wide and running into a lot of space. So he probably will get a decent quantity of goals. Exactly. I think it's a pretty no-risk signing. I mean, we've spent more. I mean, we spent double that on Moussa Sissoko, right? Like, we spent a lot more money on complete dross. So I think it's a pretty low-risk signing. He gets in good positions. He will get a lot of assists. He's experienced. I don't really see the issue if we make it permanent.
Can I just interrupt?
Yeah.
Phil, Kerry King, give Phil Ambrose his phone back right now.
Oh, no.
Anyway.
Adama Traore has even less end product than Timo Werner. God.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. Unless he massively drops his wages, I think it'd be detrimental to the squad. Interestingly. I mean, he might agree to a lower wage. You never know. It depends on the agent. But sorry, the one thing we haven't discussed was the chant. Was it Ivan Toney? You should have cashed out. Was that, or tapped out? Was that the one?
Cashed out.
Originally, I couldn't work out what they were singing, and then one of the guys told me on the WhatsApp. It was brilliant. Oh, Kerry's given up on that. Anyway, we got there. We got our 3-2 win. Happy days. Let's move on. Just a quick from our sponsors, footballprizes.com, which hopefully I'm going to put the link in the chat now. This is a really good one. There's loads of, there's so many prizes in this. There's 599 tickets. It ends at 7:30 on Monday unless it sells out earlier. They've just gone over 400 tickets sold. Have a look at this. There's so many spot instant wins and all sorts. So give Football Prizes, who are having some brilliant prizes at the moment, especially Spurs related, a look. The link is in the chat right now, or just Google football prizes. This is only available in the UK, I'm afraid. I'm not sure why, but that's the way it is. So there you go. Seb, I've done my bit. Let's move on to Everton v Tottenham, which is now in 14 and a quarter hours time. Jack, you're going to have to get some sleep, mate, before you watch along on the Irish Hotspur channel.
It's going to be a quiet night. Yeah.
Cam, what's this, like 11:30 in the evening for you?
What is it? 12:30 kickoff. So yeah, that'll be 11:30 in the evening. Nice in the middle of the night. So might stay up for it. Actually, we'll see. But
a few tinnies.
Couple of tinnies for sure. I've got a couple in the fridge actually. So it's going to be about 33 degrees today. I think 33 tomorrow. So actually, it'll be a warm night. Cold tinnies. I might even get another six.
I don't know if you can see that, but it's about 11 degrees in this garage right now. It's a bit different.
Jeepers.
I've got a blanket and a hoodie on my lap. There you go. That's commitment. So Everton, as we know, have had 10 points deducted for financial irregularities and might have another 10 points deducted, or they might get them back. But they are in the relegation zone. And I'm not sure when the Everton Stadium, I think it's 2 years before it's ready. But if they get relegated, this might be our last ever trip to one of the last great English football grounds, Goodison Park, which is a great ground, great atmosphere, but it is a bit archaic and falling apart. So it's a bit like White Hart Lane. You've got to look at it's time to move on. And their new stadium does look lovely. I'm sure it will do very well in the Championship potentially. And if it wasn't for Sean Dyche, I know Richo, our resident Everton fan, is in the chat saying if it wasn't for Dyche, they would be, really well done. Oh, I've just seen Paula Creed's passed away. Carl Weathers. Oh, very sad.
Chubs.
Great actor. Anyway, I'll swap down from Richo. Did I start Richo's comments? Here we go. Without Dyche, we would be down in the Championship. I mean, I think there's a fair chance it's going to happen, but obviously it is a false position. They'd be in mid-table, 28 points without the deduction. Here's their run of form. So top left is the most recent game, all the way down to bottom right. So they had a run of 4 wins in a row at the back end of last season. Then they lost to Fulham in the Cup, lost to us in a game I think they were very unlucky in, especially when Gomez came on as sub. He really turned the game around for them, and we really struggled. City beat them, Wolves smashed them, and they really struggled. 1 win against Palace recently. They've really, really struggled to score goals. They've had injuries in midfield, Jack. Here's the form guide at us against them. As you can see from this again, we are, in theory, we're favourites, but it is at Goodison Park. What's your vibes for this game?
I don't normally kind of talk about sort of, history of sort of fixtures, but this does feel like one where, if I'm not mistaken, we've almost drawn in almost every game that feels like we played them in sort of the last 10 or so. And so that sort of gives me a bit of concern that, we're not going to win convincingly because we just haven't found a way to. But Everton, they are desperate, and they haven't been as in good in form as they were sort of in that Christmas period. In that Christmas period, they really were sort of flying. And now they're, I don't see them getting relegated personally, like as good as Luton Town are. Maybe Forest, it's just one of those teams like Forest, Luton Town, Fulham, Brentford. Somebody's going to slip down in there. I just would be really shocked to see Everton do it, because the way Dyche sets them up, they almost never get beaten convincingly, right? They always keep it close. They do make it sort of, you have to really get lucky in order to score lots of goals against them, and they keep it tight and they pick their moments when to hurt you. And when they do have their full strength midfield of Doucouré, Onana, other players in there too, I do rate them. Luckily, I think they're without guys like Doucouré, who I actually think is one of the most underrated players really in the Premier League. I think he really carries that team sort of going forward as well as sort of defensively. I rate sort of Spurs' chances of getting a win here. I don't see it being, a convincing 3-1, 3-0, sort of something like that. Like, I do feel like, to even score more than 2 away from home at Goodison Park is going to be a tough ask for Spurs. Still without Sonny. Pop Matasar, I feel like, too, is like only just coming back from AFCON. Like, I don't think he's going to be coming back, fully fit or even, at his best anyways. I hope Lo Celso is available, because we've been really needing him these past few games. And if he continues to find himself hurt, I will be frustrated by that, because I feel like the last 3 or 4 games we could have really used him, and he's not been available. which is, I think, sort of speaks to why some people kind of get fed up with him, including me, because when we have asked for him to be available, he never is. And when we sort of don't need him, he is available. And I don't know. It's Spurs, I think, should win this game, but I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up as a draw just because Everton are going to fight for every point. They're not in the best sort of form recently. I really rate Sean Dyche. So I see him, battling this out for a point, really, or maybe even more. But I'm going to say Spurs could win it 2-1. That sort of scoreline I've heard a lot, for this game is a 2-1.
Yeah, you're right, Jack. The last 4 league games Spurs have played at Goodison have ended up in draws since we beat them 6-2, which was probably Pochettino's last really good performance. And obviously we lost the cup game 5-4 there as well in that bizarre cup game under Jose Mourinho. James, we enjoyed your cat there, just on a bit of screen. They're very nice. Early kickoffs can sometimes bring the atmosphere down. That might be a good thing for Spurs at Goodison if they're not quite firing tomorrow.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you talk about, decrepit stadiums. Let me know when you've used a toilet that's still outside at your local. That's awful. But Fratton Park still has outside toilets, by the way, in one of the blocks, North Upper. There you go. Yeah, hopefully. I mean, I don't know. Earlier kickoffs, people have got less time to get, drunk. People have got less time to get ready. It's Saturday. Some people are going to still have hangovers. So hopefully it won't be quite as buoyant as it would be if it was, say, a 5 o'clock kickoff. Dyche is a great manager, and it's not going to be an easy game, but I think we are just a lot better than they are, and I think we will get a win. I think as soon as we get a goal, they'll have to open up a little bit, and we can probably comfortably win the game. Hopefully I can get to the pub tomorrow to watch the game, because that'd be nice. But yeah, it's not going to be easy, but all things considered, we should be winning that. If we want to be top 4, and if I don't want to lose my bet to Isaiah, that's the kind of game we have to be winning. No excuses. This is what everyone wants to know: is the youthful cheese room betting syndicate across the pond between you and Isaiah. That's what everyone wants to know about. Dan, I am going to tell you, I'm afraid it was a 0-0 draw. Was Conte's first game, and Lo Celso did hit the post right at the end. The 2-2 draw. I remember Kane scored twice. That was under Mourinho, the same season that we lost 5-4 in the cup. I thought Conte's first game was it the Conference League? Well, the first Premier League game. Oh, so, okay. Yes, it was the European game. Was Conte's first game? Yeah. Not less time, just earlier start. Just start. Well, you say that. You say that, but my mate's a Rangers fan, and that's what he says about the Old Firm. He's like, they started at 12:30, so people can't get drunk. He's like, nah, mate, we just start drinking at 6 a.m. We're hammered by the game's time. No worries, mate. What a brilliant impression that was. So this was Everton's starting lineup in their 0-0 draw with Fulham in the week. Now, looking at this, I don't know how accurate this is, but they seem to have had Dwight McNeil playing central midfield with Ashley Young playing right wing. I mean, he could have played right wing back, I guess. They could have played 3 at the back with Godfrey switching over. But it does seem they're quite short of players, Cam. Is this a good time to play Everton? Or with us still missing players, do you think it's just going to balance out?
I think it'll balance out. Did they play the same time as Spurs the other night? Because it feels like we've got such...
They played the day before.
This might balance out because we only play, I was going to say Thursday morning, but that's my time, Wednesday night. So it's a very quick turnaround. I think that kind of evens out if they've got that extra day of recovery. And we don't have everybody available per se as well. So largely, I think it does even out. Can I also ask, was this the game at the Lane where Calvert-Lewin got his goal disallowed earlier in the season against Everton?
Yes.
I think we beat them.
We beat them 2-1, but we were lucky. We did. We got 2 up. We weren't convincing. When was it Idrissa Gueye got injured? One of the midfielders got injured, and Andre Gomez came on, and he just ran the game. He just he dictated the game, like the way Bentancur does for us at times, but we just couldn't cope with it.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting this one. I would like to take a win. I'd be happy with a draw. This quick turnaround, He's given me a little bit of the irrits because I got a feeling Ange is going to probably make a couple of changes coming into that starting lineup. I don't know if Maddison will start or if he'll play anywhere near a full game. But yeah.
Steve's not happy with your accent, James.
I can do better than that. Like, come on. I didn't realise I was going to be doing it. I didn't make my mind up to do it till I was halfway through. Got to give me time to prep these things.
So Danjuma's
out.
Apparently. That's good news because he was unlucky not to score at Tottenham.
Yeah,
he had one hit the bar and then hit Vicari's knee and fall out. So I think the things we've got to watch out for is obviously the goal that City scored against us. We saw Brentford actually crowd the 6-yard box the other night. Everton 100% are going to do that. Tarkowski, the number of games that they've won Burnley-esque 1-0 under Dyche already with Tarkowski, or even when Conor Cody was there last season. I think we've really got to be careful at set pieces. Really does worry me.
Yeah, he's on my fantasy team, Tarkowski. So
is he?
He gets me lots of points on a regular basis. Yeah, and I got him from the very beginning of the season. I feel very smart about it.
Nicely done. So shall we talk about we could guess the team, but Andrew will just do whatever he wants. So it's going to be a tricky one. We know the back four is probably going to be unchanged. Who do we think? Bentancur was taken off after an hour. Do you think he'll start, Jack?
I sort of was going back and forth between this whole meritocracy of whether Johnson and Højbjerg should start after the great impacts that they had in the previous game. I sort of think that you do stick with the same lineup, probably because Johnson, I think, benefited from there being that sort of, space to really sort of stretch. And also I just feel like, when the fullbacks tire, he has the pace to really hurt them and sort of, cause them more trouble than maybe in the beginning of the game. And sort of the same thing with Højbjerg. I think the game was a bit more stretched. He had more time on the ball than he would in a game where it's just started, where I think Højbjerg would he struggles more when you give him less time on the ball. When you do give him time on the ball, I think he can hurt you, and I think he can pick apart passes, spray it, left and right. And when he has less time on the ball, he will start to look a bit clumsier, not as great in sort of receiving it on the half turn, all those sort of things. So I think you sort of then stick with same sort of midfield. If we can get Lo Celso or Kulusevski or somebody else in there too, that'd be nice, but sort of the same midfield. And then maybe pop Sarr if he really is fit. But I just have a slight worry that he might just not be as energetic as what we're used to, just because I think he's just gotten back off a plane and from kind of a major tournament as well. But I'd say, yeah, for the most part, same midfield, same front line, just sort of do it again. And if we need to make the same impact subs, just make the same ones because it seemed to work. Don't fix what ain't broke.
So Richo's given us his team, although he's put Danjuma in, so it'll be interesting to see if he is fit or not. So he's got Patterson right back, Tarkowski and Branthwaite centrally, Milenko left back, Udogie, Garner and White, McNeil midfield with Danjuma, Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Beto playing up front with him. He's going for a 4-4-2. So interesting. What have we got? And Rainman is going for Pedro, QT, Vidivi, Udogie, Bentancur, Sarr and Maddison. Now, he said in the press conference that they're going to see how Sarr is after training today and assess him, but he will be involved. So I suspect it really all depends how he's come through training, having travelled back, if Sarr starts or not. But we definitely have missed Sarr's legs, I think, in midfield.
Yeah, how long is since he played? For Senegal?
It was Tuesday, was it? Or Monday? Tuesday? Yeah, but for some reason, LUC say their manager decided all the players had to go back to Senegal. They couldn't fly straight back to their clubs. So it dragged it out another day. He was due to fly back to the UK on Wednesday. So, yeah, I think maybe it was Monday they played.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was Tuesday. But, yeah, either way, they were due to fly back Wednesday. It was going to be too early for the Brentford game. So he'll be at least on the bench tomorrow, which is great. Which is great news. It gives us another option off the bench. James, who's your front three tomorrow? Obviously Richie and Werner. So who's your right winger? That's probably the question.
Two schools of thought. What would I do if I'm playing Football Manager? Johnson, because they will defend very narrowly. Everton, I think. And there will be some space out wide. And also, if Johnson starts, that means we can have my dream midfield three of Bentancur, Maddison, and Kulu. Because I think against a team that's going to play a low block, you need two creative midfielders. And my worry is if you play a Skipp or a Højbjerg, as great as a 6, I think Højbjerg is, you don't have that same level of creativity. And I do think you need two quite creative 8s against a team that's going to sit deep, which Everton will. So I think you're better off playing Werner and then letting Kulu play in the middle just to give us that little bit more creativity in the mid.
Yeah. Cam, what's your thoughts on this? Do you think, I mean, I probably agree with it, Dan's question. Does anyone think Bentancur still isn't properly fit? I'm not, you're not going to be back straight away after such a long, well, it was 2 injuries, wasn't it? Do you think he's still struggling a little bit?
Yes, I don't think we're going to see the real Bentancur. And this is, I'm not trying to sound overly pessimistic. I don't think we're going to see the real Bentancur until the next season. I think, yes, he's had his all the conditioning and everything to come up to match fitness. I think it's slightly more mental as well. I see what he's done is an ACL, which I see a lot in local Aussie rules here. And typically the player that comes back from it isn't the same player for a good few months. That's just by virtue of probably mental scar, but also physical rehab as well. So I think Bentancur's not the same Bentancur at the moment, but I myself kind of expected that. I think you've still got to give him probably the off season to actually probably come back to the Bentancur that we do fully know. Yes, he showed shades of Bentancur of the past, but it's clearly not the same as he used to be.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go predictions then. Jack, I'll throw it to you.
I think I said 2-1. I've kind of went back and forth between two score lines where Spurs win, 3-2 or 2-1. I do think it's going to be close. I'd be surprised if we end up winning by more than 1 goal. So I'm going to say 2-1.
James?
I think we'll get an early goal through something jammy. So I'm going to go 4-1. Maybe 4-2. No, 4-2. 4-2.
Oh, I've just got an update. Excelsior lost their game 2-1. Parrott did score the only goal. Sorry. Cameron?
3-2 to us. Wouldn't be surprised with a Desmond, but I'm going to go 3-2.
I think you're right. I don't think we can keep a clean sheet. We seem capable of that at the moment. I think it was something we didn't really discuss. I think Udogie is now going to become a bit of a marked man. I think teams are going to look to really pressurise him and look for mistakes. So Richo's obviously going positive, going for 2-1 to Everton. If Everton win, Richo, I think it'd be 1-0 because that seems to be the Sean Dyche score. But we do tend to score in most games. I'm going to go 2-1 to Spurs because I'm just going to be positive. Kerry's going 4-1. Danny's going 3-1. Fletch is going 1-0. So
gee.
I'm just going to put up our next 6 games and show that we've got quite a nice little run in theory. So we've got obviously Everton tomorrow, followed by our chance to have a revenge on Brighton after James and I had to suffer that 4-2 defeat at, I almost said the Goldstone ground. That's going old school. At the Amex recently. That was not a fun 90 minutes, was it, James? Well, the last 10 were quite good.
Well, I mean, Brighton fans probably gave us the worst atmosphere I've ever heard in football. So we won on the day by singing louder.
It was a terrible atmosphere at that stadium, has to be said. Wolves are a bit hit and miss, but we should be able to beat them. Palace, hopefully Roy hasn't been sacked by then. Villa away will be tough, but Werner's got to beat that offside trap. And Fulham, you never know what you're going to get. They're a bit like a box of chocolates, to quote a famous film. Right. I'm just trying to find where I've put the... here we go. The fixtures. So, let's very quickly, we'll go through it fixture by fixture. Cam down to James, and I'll do the last one. So, Brighton, Palace, the M23 derby, Cameron. They're about 60 miles apart, but they hate each other. You wouldn't believe how much they hate each other.
Really?
It's a very long story dating back to Alan Muller and Terry Venables, basically. Both ex-Spurs players who managed those teams back in the 70s. So, yeah, go on.
I'll go 1-0 Brighton.
Jack?
3-0 Brighton. I think they'll win by a lot.
James?
They don't hate each other. They don't hate as much. They do not hate each other as much as Pompey hates Southampton. But 4-0 Brighton.
Do you know what? It's not far off. They really do dislike each other. It's
Really?
quite fun. Yeah. Oh, it's massive. Brighton obviously got a tonking at Luton and will be looking to come back from that. Palace have been pretty poor. I'm going to say 3-0 to Brighton. Burnley Fulham is a game I will not be watching. I don't know what to call this. 1-1. Cam?
2-2.
Jack?
2-0, 2-1. I think Fulham are better than Burnley. Burnley are by far the worst team in the Premier League next to Sheffield.
Talking of Fulham, Carlos Vinicius has today joined Galatasaray along with Sergio Aurier.
Yeah.
So they're joining Davinson Sanchez. And is there another ex-Spurs player there? So they're getting the old gang back together. Galatasaray go for Champions League glory.
There's a Galatasaray director of football there that really must love pain and suffering, and so he's just gone for every Spurs player.
Tanguy Ndombele's there. No, that's where Ndombele is, isn't it?
Tanguy there.
Yeah.
Well, of course he is.
Next, they'll be picking up Nkudu. They'll be picking up Vincent Janssen. They might even go for Brad Friedel, try and game out of retirement, you know?
Wasn't Nkudu out there, actually? Wasn't Nkudu out in Turkey?
Yeah, he was.
Am I imagining that? I get
No,
lost
he
with
was.
him. Yeah. Anyway, James, Burnley, Fulham.
I think Burnley are dreadful. I think maybe 3 or 4-0 Fulham. I'll go 3-0 Fulham.
Do you want to go Newcastle?
Ooh. Well, I hate Newcastle, so for multiple reasons. So I'm going to predict a 1-0 win for Luton.
Okay. Jack?
I want Luton to win, but I feel like they give it a good game away from home, but they find it hard to actually win. So I'm going to say Newcastle win 2-0.
Yeah. Cam?
Newcastle 2-1.
I think Newcastle will probably score a few. I can see this being like a 3-1, 3 or 4-1 maybe. Sheffield United Villa. Really hoping the Sheffield United turn up and destroy Villa, but I just think Villa might. I think Watkins got a goal the other night. I think maybe 2-1 to Villa. Cam?
I was going to say 3-1 Villa.
Jack?
Villa are weird away from home. I'm going to say they win, but I wouldn't be surprised if this being like the upset because Sheffield did them last time at home. And I'm curious if this is like a revenge fixture sort of thing. But I'm going to say, weirdly, I'll just say it just because there's no consequence. I have a weird feeling Sheffield either draw or win this game for some reason.
You know, it's
even though I don't rate them at all. They've been scoring goals. You know, like they've been starting games quickly. Maybe, you know, the fact that they beat them last time or gave them a good game last time makes me think they will again.
And also, you know, I think they're improved since they changed the manager as well. So yeah. I think it's a valid point. James?
Yeah, I think 3-1 Villa. They're just a lot better than Sheffield.
Okay. Bournemouth against Forest. I think I've got to go a home win here. Bournemouth have been quite a surprise package in many ways. So I'm going to go 2-1 to Bournemouth. Cam?
2-1 to Bournemouth as well.
Okay. Jack?
Bournemouth are really good. I'm going to say they also win 2-1 or 2-0.
James?
Yeah, 1-0 Bournemouth.
Yeah. Solanke hat-trick incoming, MS is saying. It's Solanke, you know, it's been linked with some big money moves. Talking of big money, Chelsea against Wolves. Oh, Cam, go on then.
I can see it's a 1-1 draw.
Okay. Jack?
I really like Gary O'Neill. I'm going to say they get a win or a draw here. That's all I'll say. An upset for Wolves.
James?
1-0 Wolves.
I can see this being a 1-1, to be honest. Manchester United, West Ham. Now, this is an interesting one. Both teams under a bit of pressure after midweek. Obviously, United got a late dramatic winner last night. Would have taken the toll on them a bit. Oh, United to win 1-0, I think. Cam?
West Ham to win 2-1. Moyes doing a job on his old club.
Definitely.
Jack?
God, they're both terrible. I'd say Man United win just because they have better players. But West Ham are really not a good team. So I'll just say Man United win.
I mean, either way, it helps us because one team's going to drop points in their chase. Sort of, there's that bit of gap below us, isn't there? So it just helps, keep those. A draw obviously will means that a point is lost between the two of them. Is it overall? James?
United crumble under pressure. I think West Ham, they do better in big games. Seemingly, looking at their European record over the past couple of seasons, they do a lot better. Moyes will be out to prove a point. I can see a 1-1 draw, or I'm going to go 2-2 draw.
I could see that.
Okay. So before we get to the next one, has anyone seen this bizarre thing that Arteta said in this press conference that apparently Zinchenko and Ben White have moved in together, and to quote him, they are sharing wives? Is this just a weird Arteta trying to be funny thing or something? Because I think it's him.
I don't think he is trying to be funny. He's just weird.
Lego man is weird.
I don't think he's. Yeah, I wouldn't say he's ever smart enough to be a guy that maybe he's meaning something else, sort of thing. I don't find him to be that clever. So I think whatever you interpret him doing, he probably is. And if you think whatever he said is weird, probably because it was pretty weird. Whatever he said.
Yeah. Maybe Sharing Wives is the title of the porn film he watched the night before. That whole club is full of weirdos.
Dan, Google it, mate. Seriously, Arteta is losing his. What, he had his marbles in the first place?
Yeah.
I think before we come to this, boys, do any of us think we've got a realistic chance in the title race? We're 8 points behind, which is not a huge amount in the grand scheme of things. No.
I made a bet about it, so yeah, I think we still do. I don't think we'll win, but I think we'll still be very close. If anything, 15 points. I probably could have said 100 quid if we were within 10 points. So I should have made that bet, not 15. But hey ho.
I'm not jinxing it, MS. I'm saying I don't think we can.
I think Liverpool do a better job than us in grinding out wins and points more often than we do. I think we have dropped points. I don't think Spurs fans get that upset about it. At least I don't, because we're in the very beginning stages of this Ange project. I'd be silly to be all of a sudden expecting us to be, winning every game sort of thing, especially under all the injuries that we've had. But Liverpool, have impressed me when even I think they've played terribly or played poorly and even have unconvinced me. They get the win and they get 3 points and move on, which is cliche what title winners sort of do. And it's probably them or Man City, I think, again. I think Arsenal as well, just sort of they've dropped points at times when they really shouldn't have, whereas Liverpool haven't. And Man City, they do, will go on a 15-game win streak and will just, destroy everything in their path. And it's one of those seasons.
If you're within 10 points of the title by the end of the season, were you in the title race? I suppose is the question, but that's a matter of perspective, isn't it? And I think we will be within 10, 11 points at the end of the season. So I guess we are in a title race, even if we don't see it like that necessarily. Mm-hmm. I think Liverpool will do quite well because they'll see the rest of the season as a tribute to Klopp. So I think they'll do very, very well. I mean,
and they've got Salah coming back.
They've got so they're going to be improved. Plus, they've got the Sky Sports wankfest of Jurgen Klopp. So there's a lot of media positivity about them. And City will inevitably go on some ridiculous winning streak. But we only have the Premier League. They have other competitions. They might get injuries. You never know. Dare to dream. Dare to dream.
Yeah. I think we are. I don't know if we can win it, but remember, all the opponents around us are still in Europe, I think. So, and in FA Cup and others, where we've only got the Premier League to play. So that comes into effect as well.
Interesting. Daniel's thinking that the Goons will get a result. Liverpool obviously had the smash and grab in the FA Cup, so that will be in Arsenal's head that they'll really want to get revenge. But Liverpool are just scoring goals, like you say, without Salah. They're creating a lot of chances, scoring goals. I can see this being. I mean, you say this, that we end up being a 0-0. Maybe like a 3-2 either way. This one. Oh, I'm going to go Liverpool. I want Liverpool to beat Arsenal.
I think this is the statement game for Liverpool. If they win this really heightens their credentials for the title, because this is probably, along with the City game, if they can win both of these, logically they should win the title. But I'm going to go 3-3 here. I think it could really be a crazy game, this one. I can't see Arsenal winning it. I can see Liverpool winning it, but I'm going to go a draw, 3-3.
Okay, Jack?
I think Liverpool will grind out a draw in this one. I do see Arsenal probably being really up for this game, though. And it's just whether, Liverpool can sort of be able to handle themselves in what probably is a huge game for Arsenal. Because if they don't win it, then they probably can't take themselves all that seriously in sort of a title race themselves, I think, to be honest. Like, yes, they'll be close, but they ended up then losing to a lot of teams that they shouldn't have, in sort of the title race, so to speak. So I think they're going to be up for it. They're going to play it the best they can. So I say Liverpool maybe just spoil the party with a draw. I'd be actually shocked if they win, to be honest. I'm most scared of Arsenal winning this game, actually.
James, Timmy L saying, no, we want to draw. As long as we beat Toffees, we can narrow it to 6 points at the top, which is a fair point. And then maybe we are in that title race. What's your prediction?
I hate both clubs with a passion. Top 5 hated clubs is then both probably Newcastle, City, and Southampton. So I hate all of them. Then United probably. It's a Sunday. It's either going to be very, very high scoring, or it's going to be a 1-1 draw. And my inclination is a 1-1 draw. Okay. It's going to be both teams are going to be very cagey, I think.
Can I ask what relation is it being a Sunday? Are they going to have a nice Sunday roast first, or
100%. I'm going to be hungover, so
okay.
It won't be. Every time I'm hungover, the game's a bit naff. Like I went to Pompey Leighton Orient hungover, and Leighton Orient won 3-0. So there's obviously a connection there, isn't there?
Fair enough. Right, Brentford, Man City. I am going to go for Ivan Toney 1, Manchester City 4. Cameron?
Ivan Toney 1, Manchester City 3.
Jack?
Ben Mee 1, Manchester City 3. Ben Mee scores.
And Neil Mopay to get a yellow card. James?
Yes.
If I was Ivan Toney, I'd be getting on the bet builder saying De Bruyne to assist, more pay to get booked, Toney to score, City to win by 3 goals or more.
Is Haaland
Alvarez 6. Haaland is ready to start, according to Pep.
There you go.
But Alvarez
Haaland to score really, as well, then.
They're getting their team back together, and now that juggernaut is going to start going, and it is going to be shades of that season when Liverpool had 98 and they had 99 or whatever it was. This could be really interesting, and we're going to be there as that annoying little brother just chipping away, I reckon. Especially as we haven't got any midweek game. Well, we'll have 2 midweek games for rearranged games, but I think it's going to be a really interesting second half season if we can keep going. Do I think we're going to win the league? No, but we can definitely have a say in it, and I think there's going to be a lot of people. Timmy said yes. I was waiting for a me goal. Yeah. Again, is that former Sean Dyche Burnley centre back? Isn't he?
Yeah, Tarkovsky and Ben Mee. Love having them in my fantasy team every now and again.
Get in there. So I was going to put this up quickly. Just you can join our Patreon, which means we've got a lovely chat group that Cameron and myself, and Gibbo and Jack, we all joined the YouTube through being on the Patreon. We've got loads of different chat things. You get extra discounts on the football prizes. And we're having a social next Monday. A few of us are joining up with the Fighting Cock in Clapham in South London. So I'm meeting up with Caller and Craig and Paul Muir and Seb and Franco and
nice.
a can't remember who else. It could be quite a messy evening, potentially. I apologise. So Becky is hosting Monday with HG, and I can't remember who else. I'm not sure we've sorted out the rest of the lineup. So join them on Monday. They'll be doing the review of the Everton game. Gibbo will be back Wednesday, and I think Caller should be back next Friday, as long as his missus doesn't drop a last minute. I'm going out on the Friday night, so I have to cover. Dan's been a patron channel member for a year. Great, been great.
Nice.
Also, the ticket share channel is great. It's a really good point. I've had tickets on the ticket share. We've actually got one guy, Dave, who lives in Boston, who's never sat in his season ticket, but he just keeps having it and just sells it for every game because he doesn't want to lose his season ticket. We've got people who sell tickets all the time. It's a really good seat in the South Stand. So you can get stuff there. Please do like, subscribe. If you're not watching live, leave a comment afterwards because that really helps us actually. And if you've got a view, we'll try and respond to it as well. So on that note, I'm going to say thanks for joining me, Cam.
Cheers, it's been good. Now it's good. I'm going to go out. Finally, it's a good weather here in Melbourne town, so I'm going to head to the beach. 30 degrees.
I'm up to about 11.5 degrees. That's where I'm up to. So I'm going to bed. Thanks for joining me, number one son.
Cheers, been lovely, even if it's been a bit janky off my phone. I think pub's open for another hour and 10 minutes, so might see if I can pop in for a few shots of Sambuca and a pint of Guinness. See how we go.
You live
be
in
nice.
such a
Cheers
village,
for having me.
don't you? Such a village you live in. And Jack, thanks for joining us across the pond with your sirens.
Yeah, always will include at least one, as a gift, one of my sirens. Thanks for having me. Good to be here. Enjoy our Friday chats. Hopefully, get to pick up that 2-1 win that I prayed for.
And catch Jack live on the Irish Hotspur at what time tomorrow, Jack?
Ooh, I will be up at 7 a.m. for the watch along. How the Yanks spend their time is, waking up at 6:30, 6 o'clock for Spurs on a Saturday morning, Sunday morning. It's
so what time?
Crazy
What
life
time
we
is
live.
it for you now? What time is it
Right
for you
now?
now?
It's nearly 6 o'clock now, so I will have a couple hours for
So
dinner.
5 hours. Okay.
Gonna have not too many beers, probably only 1 or 2, and hit the bed nice and early. I'm actually gonna make some tacos at home for myself.
So around midday, you'll be on the watch along, yeah? Is that right?
Your time, yes.
Around midday our time.
Yeah, sorry.
7 yeah, cool. So catch that on the Irish Hotspur, and we'll be back Monday. Becky will, and come on, you Spurs!
Come on, you Spurs!
Come on, you Spurs!